Michael Carrick! Yeah! Michael Carrick! What a...
Welcome back to The Winning Edge. Today we dive deep into one of the most fascinating developments in English football right now, Michael Carrick as interim manager of Manchester United. Is this the beginning of a long-term revival at Old Trafford, or is it simply a short-term bounce that will eventually level out? Over the next few minutes, we break down who Carrick is, what he represents, what he has changed tactically, how the players have responded, what the data tells us, and what pundits and analysts are saying about whether he can truly bring Manchester United back to sustained success. To understand Carrick's impact, we must begin with the man himself. Michael Carrick is not an outsider experiment. He is Manchester United DNA. Signed from Tottenham Hotspur in 2006 by Sir Alex Ferguson, Carrick became one of the most intelligent, deep-lying midfielders of his generation. Over 12 years at the club, he won 5 Premier League titles, a UFA Champions League, multiple domestic cups, and established himself as a calm, strategic presence in midfield. He was never the loudest player, never the flashiest, but he was almost always the thinker, the player who controlled tempo, understood positioning, and valued structure over chaos. That identity matters because what Carrick has brought as interim manager is a reflection of how he played: calm, measured, structured, controlled. When Manchester United turned to Carrick as interim head coach in January 2026, following the departure of Ruben Amorim, the club was in turbulence. Results were inconsistent. Performances lacked cohesion. There was visible frustration among players. Tactically, the team appeared disconnected. Pressing triggers were mistimed, defensive lines were uneven, and transitions often left large spaces exposed. United needed stability more than revolution. Carrick's appointment was initially viewed as a stabilizing measure rather than a transformative one, but what has followed has surprised many observers. Since taking charge, Carrick has overseen an unbeaten run in the Premier League, collecting an impressive points return in his opening stretch. Victories over direct rivals, including a 2-0 home win against Manchester City and a high-intensity 3-2 win away at Arsenal, immediately changed the narrative. These were not narrow, fortunate wins. They were tactically disciplined performances built on structure and controlled transitions. So what has Carrick actually changed? First, shape and spacing. Under Amorim, United frequently oscillated between systems without clear role definition. Carrick simplified things. He returned to a balanced 4-2-3-1 structure in most matches. This provided defensive security with a double pivot shielding the backline while allowing creative freedom in the attacking midfield line. The distances between defense, midfield, and attack became more compact. This reduced transitional vulnerability, one of United's biggest weaknesses earlier in the season. Second, pressing coordination. United's pressing under Carrick appears less frantic, but more synchronized. Instead of constant high pressing, the team now presses in defined moments, often triggered by wide passes or backward touches from opposition defenders. This selective pressing conserves energy and reduces structural gaps. The result has been fewer counterattacks conceded and more controlled defensive sequences. Third, possession tempo. United's teams do not rush the ball unnecessarily. Circulation across the back four is patient. The double pivot often drops to create a temporary back three during build-up, allowing fullbacks to advance. This positional flexibility mirrors modern possession systems seen across elite European clubs, yet it remains simple in execution. Players know their zones and responsibilities. One of the clearest statistical indicators of improvement has been defensive compactness. The average distance between United's defensive and midfield lines has decreased compared to earlier in the season. That means fewer central spaces for opponents to exploit. The center-backs are stepping forward more confidently because they trust the midfield shield in front of them. In attack, Carrick has emphasized vertical efficiency rather than endless horizontal possession. Once the ball enters the final third, the instruction appears clear: attack quickly before the opposition reorganizes. This has increased the speed of final third actions and led to more high-quality shot opportunities. Individual player development has also been notable. Benjamin Sesko's resurgence under Carrick has been one of the defining storylines. His movement between center-backs has become sharper, and his involvement in link-up play has increased. Rather than isolating him as a pure target man, Carrick's structure encourages midfield runners to support quickly, creating layered attacking waves instead of isolated duels. Bruno Fernandes has also benefited. Under Carrick, Fernandes operates with clearer spatial instructions. He is given freedom in the half spaces, but with defined defensive recovery responsibilities. This balance has allowed him to remain creative without compromising defensive structure. Beyond tactics, the psychological shift has been significant. Reports from training sessions describe increased clarity in communication. Carrick's style is described as direct but calm. There is less tactical overload and more repetition of core principles. Players appear to understand exactly what is expected in each phase of play. Leadership dynamics within the squad have also stabilized. Senior players appear more vocal, the defensive line communicates more consistently. Body language during matches, particularly after conceding setbacks, reflects resilience rather than frustration. The comeback victory against Crystal Palace highlighted this mental shift. United conceded early but maintained shape and patience, eventually turning the match around through structured attacking pressure rather than chaotic urgency. Now the key question: is this sustainable? Historically, interim manager bounces are not uncommon. A change in leadership often brings short-term psychological uplift. However, sustainability depends on tactical adaptability and squad depth. Carrick's simplified structure works well in controlled match environments, but as opponents gather more data and adapt their pressing triggers, Carrick must demonstrate the ability to counter-adjust. Fixture congestion will test squad rotation. Managing player fatigue while maintaining tactical coherence is a different challenge over a full campaign. Additionally, how Carrick handles adversity, a run of 2 or 3 poor results, will reveal whether this is a structural transformation or a morale-driven surge. Pundit reactions have been mixed but largely positive. Some analysts argue that Carrick's tactical clarity resembles elements of elite positional systems, praising his balance between defensive organization and attacking freedom. Others caution that the sample size remains limited and that the Premier League's competitive intensity will eventually demand deeper tactical complexity. There is also the strategic debate at board level. Should Manchester United appoint Carrick permanently if he secures Champions League qualification, or should they pursue a high-profile managerial candidate with extensive experience? Appointing Carrick permanently would represent continuity and cultural alignment. He understands the club's expectations and historical identity. However, it would also involve risk. His top-level managerial sample remains relatively small compared to seasoned managers with multiple league titles. From a footballing philosophy standpoint, Carrick's approach aligns with modern trends: compact defensive shape, controlled possession build-up, structured pressing, and efficient vertical transitions. It is not revolutionary, but it is coherent, and coherence, after years of instability, might be precisely what Manchester United need. Financially and strategically, Champions League qualification would significantly strengthen the case for permanence. The revenue implications, recruitment appeal, and squad retention benefits would reinforce stability. If Carrick achieves that objective, the board will face a difficult decision. Another key factor is recruitment vision. A permanent manager must influence transfer strategy. Does Carrick possess a clear long-term blueprint for squad construction? Interim roles often focus on short-term optimization rather than multi-season planning. What stands out most about Carrick's tenure so far is not flamboyance, but control. Manchester United look like a team with defined spacing. The chaos that often characterized previous months has diminished. Matches feel measured rather than erratic. However, elite football is unforgiving. Opponents will adjust. Tactical weaknesses will be studied. Depth will be tested. The true examination lies ahead. So where does this leave Manchester United? At this moment, they are competitive. They are organized. They are accumulating points at a strong rate. The belief around Old Trafford has returned. Fans sense structure rather than improvisation. That alone represents progress. Whether Carrick can truly bring back the glory days depends on defining what that phrase means. Sustained dominance requires infrastructure alignment, recruitment, academy integration, sports science, analytics, and tactical evolution. An interim manager can ignite momentum, but sustained glory demands systemic coherence. If Carrick continues refining his tactical model, demonstrates adaptability, manages rotation intelligently, and secures a top-4 finish, the argument for permanence strengthens significantly. If results regress once opponents adapt, the interim bounce narrative will dominate. As it stands, Michael Carrick's tenure is one of the most intriguing case studies in modern Premier League management. A former midfield strategist now orchestrating from the touchline. A club legend attempting to stabilize a global giant. A team rediscovering structure through simplicity. At The Winning Edge, we evaluate beyond emotion. The data supports improvement. The tactical adjustments are visible. The psychological shift is measurable in performance consistency. But the long-term verdict remains unwritten. And that is what makes this story compelling. Is this the beginning of a new managerial era at Manchester United? Or a well-executed temporary correction before the next chapter begins? Only time, fixtures, and adaptation will decide. If you enjoyed this in-depth analysis, subscribe to The Winning Edge for more elite football breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, should Michael Carrick be appointed permanently, or should Manchester United look elsewhere for their long-term future? This is The Winning Edge, where analysis meets insight.